Losing myself, I'm losing myself tonight.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Rare and Real. This is episode 3, and this is our August episode. It's from the end of August, so it's back to school season. I'm your host, Nate Milam, here with my amazing co-host,
Hello, it's Carter Hemion.
and we are glad to be here with you guys again today. We have something very special for you. Just taking a moment to acknowledge the time of year and acknowledge our experiences in this area. I am 26 years old at this point in time, so past all of school, I am coming to you as someone who has dealt with going to school, going back to school many times. About 13-ish years of quote unquote back to school, right? And just wanted to jump into the feelings that go into that. Now, especially feelings that are intertwined with having a rare disease or having any type of illness. I think that for me, I had the normal feelings of, I guess, angst and not wanting to go back to school because, nobody wants summer to end. But that's mixed with shreds of anxiety that exist because I'm concerned about, my health, or making sure that when I am in school, I'm able to exist as a person in a way that's comfortable for me, like everyone else is. For anyone who is new to the show or hasn't really heard my story in depth before or may not remember, so my early days of school was me mostly going to school in pain because I was living with a Crohn's disease diagnosis, and one of my main symptoms was abdominal pain, and then that was followed by inability to control my bowels. Really fun. In order to ease my mind, meaning my mother and I, needed to make sure that when I was at school, I had some sort of support system. Now, it wasn't easy for me to talk to my peers who were kids and not really, I think, at the level to understand what it was that I was going through. But we really made an effort with the staff, especially the nurse. And this is how accommodations came into my life. So for me, I was able to get accommodations in school that helped me live. I'm pretty sure the plan is called a 504 plan. And because I was always in pain, and if I was in the bathroom, it was no telling how long I was going to be in there for. And then, I needed to be protected in case I had an accident or I may miss a test or something like that. So I got a special pass, for one, to go use the nurse's bathroom because I was getting essentially attacked. Not physically, fortunately, but I was getting emotionally and verbally attacked in school when I was going to use the regular bathrooms with everyone else, because apparently pooping in school is a no-no. And so whenever I'd be in the stalls, I would catch a lot of flack. So it just became a really unbearable experience. I started really getting anxious when it came to needing to use the bathroom. And so my mom was like, we need to stop sending you to the the regular bathrooms. We need to have a conversation with the nurse and let the nurse help you, allow you to have a place of privacy for you to be able to, no one should feel anxious going to the bathroom ever. And the nurse's bathroom was private. So I got a special laminated pass that I had to carry around with me in school that allowed me to use the nurse's bathroom. And I also had accommodations that stated whenever I had to go that I was allowed to just go. And there are a lot of rules in school and there's a lot of structure. So growing up, the normal, like in my normal reality for people, you weren't allowed to use the bathroom at certain times. You know, the teacher was in the middle of like a new lesson, or if the class is like on timeout or whatever it may be, like you can't always just go to the bathroom, or like if you're in a lab or whatever is happening, right? So I could not afford to be trapped, so to speak, by any person in charge because that would cause more harm for me personally than letting me go because I couldn't control it. So if I get held, if I'm raising my hand, hey, I got a potty, and I need to go to the bathroom, and the teacher's like, not right now, and I'm trying to be respectful. Well, I'm going to be in my chair in class. I'm going to shit myself. So now I'm embarrassed. You're upset. The janitor has to come, and it's just a mess. So that's not fun for anybody. So we had to devise a plan for us to prevent that, which means Nate has accommodations that state whenever he has to go, he doesn't even have to raise his hand. He can just go. But because I was raised to be respectful, and I'm kind of conditioned in that, I'll do a little, hey, I'm leaving, or like my mom would be like, you can let them know that you're leaving, but you need to be walking out the door when you're telling them you're leaving. Do not wait for them to notice you. And so that was something that I was provided. Granted, now there are administrators and teachers who are not as understanding and who, somehow love to pick a fight. So I did have instances where either a staff person would be like, why are you using the nurse's bathroom? Or what gives you permission to be in here? Ignoring my past completely. Or you would have like teachers in the class who just wouldn't give a fuck and be like, no. And then, I just have to, my mom would say, leave and deal with them later. So that's what I would have to do because people are difficult. I don't know why, but they are. And so, or like if there's a sub, and subs just, you have some strict subs and some subs who don't care. So I just had to learn how to really like speak up for myself, for my needs, in a space where it wasn't guaranteed that people would be looking out for me. I also got time during tests. If there's a test in session, like those big, long, hours long exams that you're not allowed to go to the bathroom for, I had permission to go use the bathroom and come back with the time that I left. Like I was allotted the time elapsed because my version of going to the bathroom wasn't the same as everybody else's. So if I was in the bathroom for 30 minutes, I don't want to come back to class and then I'm lost 30 minutes of test time that I would have needed and would have been useful if not for my bathroom needs. And, I can't control this thing because this is a medical condition. So this is like a pipeline, and lots of complexities around that and developing this. But Carter, I'm interested in hearing, I know we've had some talks around this, but what was your experience like? What's your viewpoint towards going back to school, for one? And for two, what was your experience like, getting set up in school?
I was someone who was very late to be diagnosed with everything. So I didn't have any of my diagnoses really while I was in school at all until like after I had already dropped out of college and was just trying to figure it all out. And so for me in school, I think back to a lot of times where I really could have used accommodations and would have been more successful, but didn't have them. There were a few times where, I had my IEP for speech therapy for a couple of years in elementary school and, kind of negotiated one-on-one some accommodations in high school, but it really wasn't something that I got much support for. I think back to, having GI problems in elementary school and like being in pain with stomach aches all the time. And I was told it was just stress. And I was just stressed out from school and don't worry so much. And that just wasn't helpful. I remember having problems learning to hold a pencil because of the way that my joints are so hypermobile, so my fingers are bent backwards and I just can't hold it right. Or, like a lot of small things that added up. The pain, the chronic pain from being like 12, 13 onwards that just never went away. And the way that impacted going to PE and just hurting the whole time. Or having undiagnosed POTS my whole life, where I would be so nauseous and like my teeth would hurt and my heart would be racing and I'd get chest pain and all of that. And it was never taken seriously. Even when I tried bringing it up to like primary care, it was like, oh, you don't have asthma, therefore there's no reason for these symptoms. You're just stressed out, you're just overthinking. And that all just kind of built up more and more over the years. By the end of high school, it got to a point where those last few years I was really struggling because of the chronic pain and because of the chronic fatigue and that like allergy symptoms with the MCAS, and also just having been not yet diagnosed like autism, ADHD, OCD, like the whole collection of, the way I think differently. And I remember like having to go between classes to the nurse's office to go get ice and, negotiating one-on-one, like, okay, I can't write this paper like for the test. So that meant I got like much less time and I could maybe type at a computer for it, but which still was very painful. And like having to do my exams, because I took like a bunch of classes and was trying to do like all the most advanced classes and was in a program where we had to write like a 4,000 word essay and, like hours long tests at the end of the years. And I just think of like my high school self who was, chest pain and hands aching, like ice packs, taking Tylenol on the breaks between big tests. Just, I feel like there were so many opportunities where something could have been done, where there could have been some intervention, where there could have been some kind of support, and there just wasn't. And so I kind of ended up falling between the gaps there. And I don't know. I don't really have an answer for that, or like a solution, just a frustration for my younger self who could have succeeded more. Who, I remember my last week of high school, I was trying to pull up 3 failing grades in the last 3 days of school before graduation.
Wow.
And it was just the stress of all that, of being in 2 hand braces, trying to, with my elbow brace and like wrist brace, just trying to get through the day and push through everything. I think because for so long I was told I was just stressed out from school. I was just not trying hard enough. So I had to, I guess, put in more effort. But I ended up internalizing a lot of that for a really long time, thinking I was just too sensitive and just not trying hard enough. And that caused a lot of damage to how I thought about myself and made it even harder to manage some of the mental health symptoms that came with all of that over the years. By the time I got into college, it was at a point where, I had undiagnosed gastroparesis, so I was struggling to eat enough. I was nauseous all the time. I hadn't felt hungry for years. I was dizzy all the time. I started getting vertigo, my whole body aching, just like having an awful time. And then with my mast cell problems, allergic to everything, and to a point of hallucinating and getting delusions. And the only accommodations that I got in college were a little bit of extra time on some tests. And that just wasn't what I needed, and it wasn't enough. And even when I had ER visits, I couldn't really get excused. So, I wish I had some answer or some way to go back and fix things, but I think it's just unfortunate that a lot of the times we don't get what we need, especially when we're rare and we're undiagnosed. So I wish that I had known earlier how to advocate for myself and how to ask for answers and ask for more tests and push back, because I never really understood that I could have a two-way conversation with my doctors or with my teachers or counselors in that way.
I hear you. And when I listen to this, I'm wondering, I feel like now you have definitely evolved a lot over the years and you have different tools and resources. So I'm just wondering, what was the journey to now? What helped you grow in that area? As far as I know, you said some of these things you internalized, and I wonder how you, because now, like, none of that is your fault. It's not you, right? So how did you overcome this? And I'm wondering what kind of, for those who are in a place right now that is similar to where you were, what advice would you give them?
Um, I would say be patient with yourself. But I'll be honest, I'm still working through it. I'm still having to remind myself that I did the best that I could with what I had available to me, and I think that's all we can do. We can't, we only know what we know, and we can't change the past. We can't convince someone else of something if they don't want to hear it. But we do the best that we can with what we know, what we have available to us, and that's enough.
So, yeah, one thing that comes up for me is the exhaustion. And I just thought about this while you were talking. I think you mentioned something about exhaustion as well. And I don't know, I'm sort of starting to just think that exhaustion is a big piece of like a lot of maybe any rare disease. I don't know. I just think that between the stress and maybe like the anxiety of trying to get a diagnosis and like going through treatment and stuff, that contributes to the exhaustion, just on top of having to literally deal with your condition every single day. But I wasn't able to eat a lot. So I was distinguishing two different eras of me going through school, and that's Nate pre ostomy bag, when Nate was, using the bathroom the quote unquote regular way and the most miserable way possible in pain, and having to get accommodations to help with the process of being able to go when I needed to go and go in peace. And then there's like Nate post bag, when my accommodations were based around, you know, me having access to my supplies whenever I needed them in case of an emergency, and then still being able to go and take care of myself when it came to using the bathroom, in an appropriate way. But the exhaustion came into effect daily because I had a loss of appetite. My pain was so severe abdominally that I was afraid, literally afraid to eat. And I would feel like even the smallest portion of a meal, I would eat it and then I would like be in pain. So I started associating food with pain and eating with pain. And so I was not eating properly for my age and size at the time. And then I was always tired because I was not getting in the nutrients or whatever it is that, helps your body function. And so I remember a part of my accommodations was, I couldn't do gym. I was sitting out of gym because it was just too much for my body. And, not that I can sit here and say that all gays are anti-sports, but this gay, this gay at the time was definitely anti-sports, definitely anti-physical activity. So maybe this accommodation wasn't like, maybe me missing gym wasn't the worst thing ever, but definitely something that I needed, or something that helped me. And just throwing that in there because, I am curious how many rare disease patients, who were able to get accommodations, like what aspects of school they had to miss. So for anyone who is listening, for everyone who is listening, let us know what if any, if you were dealing with your rare disease in school and you were able to get accommodations for your disease, what, if anything, as far as classes or activities, did you have to miss out on? And I'm also curious to know, how upset were you? Like, was it something that you really enjoy doing and you felt a loss? And it's this like weird space where you are sort of needing to take care of yourself, but also missing out on something that you love? Or was it similar to, my PE situation where I did not, PE wasn't helping me and I also hated PE. So it was beneficial to me to miss it. But I know that there's a spectrum. So I'm wondering what these experiences are for you guys. I'm also thinking about ways that our community can help patients now in school going through this. And for those who don't have an exact diagnosis, it may not be advantageous to like have specific accommodations, but I do think that there are signs, even though people don't know the exact disease that they have, they are sick. Like they are showing signs of, my body is not functioning the way that I feel like it should. And based off of those symptoms, I do think that people should be afforded accommodations. And I'm feeling like there, well, I'm learning about lots of resources in the rare disease community that exist that I didn't really know, especially around covering costs of medications and as far as like lobbying and policies that are equating to the rare disease experience for patients living. But I do think there should be, more acknowledgement of our life during our years in school, more focus on that aspect of care, because I think that we can develop some tailored resources for kids in the situation. For example, me encountering pushback from certain staff at school when it came to enforcing my accommodations. First of all, people need to be more aware of the fact that kids are needing accommodations. And I think that a part of the reason why some staff is so reluctant is because they aren't educated. I mean, they don't really, I think people downplay the severity of some of these diseases. And like some people think that people are using accommodations for their own benefit, like they're trying to escape work.
Yeah, like equating
Yeah,
accommodations with special privileges
exactly. Yes, exactly.
when it's really not.
When it's really medically necessary. When really we're just trying to,
Yeah.
I think it's hard enough having to go to school with accommodations and feeling all the factors around like being different or being ostracized or like I'm not performing at the same level as other people. And like you were saying, it can be easy to internalize those feelings. And I'm losing my train of thought, so there's that. But I think that more stories should be told about the experience kids are having in school with the rare disease. And I think that the more these stories are told, the more understanding can happen. I think that, this is what I was going to say. It's already frustrating enough and hard enough to go to school being disabled and needing accommodations or whatever it is that you need to help you get through the day. On top of that, adding staff that makes it difficult to get to like enact those accommodations on the day to day. I already facing a barrier, and then on top of that, you're making it heavier. And so I would love to see a world that exists where people can go to school and get what they need and not have their accommodations questioned, especially if they have a pass, or if they have a note. I feel like there needs to be something in place, which I'm going to figure out. But yeah, don't really have a lot more to say on this topic right now, just because I do want to save some of it for a special episode that we have in store. But just wanted to lay the groundwork for as it is back to school season, one of my favorite things to do, because I was less sporty, more nerdy in school, more artsy in school. So my favorite thing about going back to school was back to school shopping. And it was to get like the supplies, like, okay, I'm getting new mechanical pencils. What kind of pens am I getting this year? Like I'm making sure the school supply list is printed, and, I'm just like really excited about using my supplies in school, and then, seeing my friends. And I did like to learn. My favorite subject was science, so go figure. I'm, really into science now. But I think going through school, I related to science and health just because I was trying to somehow solve the puzzle of my life along the way. And I just was connecting with what I was learning through science. Also really enjoyed English. And again, we talk about this, in another episode as well, but you're navigating all sorts of feelings. So there's, the excitement, and then there's like, there were definitely people in school I didn't want to deal with, people in school I wasn't looking forward to seeing, and situations I was not looking forward to being in. Lots of times I was missing school for like surgeries and things, and I wouldn't feel like going back and explaining why. So, back to school, it's a topic that covers many different aspects of going back to school, but I envision a world where we have an easier time navigating school with whatever it is that we need, whether that be specific accommodations or, conversations that are had to make sure that everyone's on the same page. My mom was close to some of my teachers, so she had a direct contact with them. Others weren't like that. So we basically just need to make it easier for rare disease patients to navigate school. Yeah, it's just, first of all, it's not talked about a lot. It's not talked about enough. And in order to improve in this area, we need to be talking about it. So we need to be having more conversations about it. And I think that's just like the gist of what I'm trying to say. There's lots to talk about, but these conversations need to be happening more in the space. So glad that we can bring this, to you guys and to the public, and to just share a glimpse of what that's like. But yeah, before we close, Carter, anything on your heart?
Yeah, you said that so well, and I just would love to see a world where, as rare disease patients, we can talk about, our favorite subjects and debate the mechanical pencil versus the pen.
Yeah.
Being a mechanical pencil kid explains a lot.
Blue or black? Right, yeah. Yeah, blue ink or black ink.
To be able to talk about these things and our favorite subjects, and, complain about PE or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because school, the big stress of school shouldn't be around how we can access the building and get through the day.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate what you said there so much.
Thanks, Carter.
I want to see that vision. I want to see that come true for other kids. And I'm glad we can have these conversations, and hopefully just keep encouraging people to keep advocating for themselves and for their kids.
Yeah. We need to normalize this. Like, there's, of course, rare diseases are rare, so you're not really going to be able to point them out, and there won't be a ton of us in one school. But that doesn't mean that kids aren't still sick in school. That doesn't mean that kids don't have disabilities in school. There's lots of kids in school who are learning, who do need accommodations, who do have disabilities. And I think that growing up, there was this like, there's this perception of sick kids, like they aren't somehow on this equal playing field. And then like, there can be bullying. There's lots of things that go on, but there are so many kids in school who are going through some type of something that I think that we need to be talking about it more, because quite frankly, I think it's more than people realize. And I may go as far to say as we may outnumber the people who are quote unquote able-bodied, right? I think that if there was more conversation about it, or even like people who may be quote unquote able-bodied, they know somebody, they have a relationship with somebody who would be in need of accommodation. So I just think people should lead with more understanding, for one. And two, if we recognize that there's more of us out there that exist and are living and are trying our best to, navigate school in a comfortable way, then we can break down this like almost joke factor of what it's like to go to school with a disability or a rare disease or whatever. And I keep saying or, even though there's lots of overlap between these things. So maybe one of these days we'll like do a specific like in-depth
Yeah.
wrapped into one. You could either fall into all categories, fall into one category, whatever it may be. But
And
awareness.
there's so much shift between categories, and
You said what,
especially
Carter?
for like, there's so much shift between the categories where we might fall into one in one part of life and another later.
Yeah,
I think especially with late diagnosis, it's not everyone gets seen as the sick kid. They're the kid who misses school a lot, or
yeah,
who's skipping classes, or whatever. But there's always a reason. There's a reason that people don't show up, or they don't want to participate, or whatever the behavior is labeled as.
absolutely. Yeah, school.
It's cool.
Just to get y'all, just to get the minds rolling, you know. There's just lots to cover, and I'm tiptoeing around it right now because I'll go on, and I do want to like say something. So just want to thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Rare and Real. I really appreciate everyone's support, everyone who's been following us thus far. We're growing. There's exciting things happening, exciting things coming, and you know, one step at a time. We're here for anyone who feels like their voice isn't being heard, or who feels like there are conversations that must be happening that are not happening, and you have a space here, please let us know. And yeah, it's back to school season, so I just want to tell everyone going back to school, good luck. We're here for you, we support you, we're rooting for you. We know what it's like to have challenges going back to school with accommodations or without access to accommodations. And we do not live in a vacuum, and we all have very diverse experiences that deserve to be shared, and we can learn a lot from each other in that way. And I think the rare disease space could learn a lot from these stories. So again, thank you for tuning in. Very happy to get to chat with you guys again this month. We'll be back next month with some crazy stuff, actually. We actually have some crazy things coming next month, so tune in for that. But yes, thank you. Carter, anything else you want to close us out?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being with us this summer. Good luck going back to school. Sending lots of good wishes, and keep up with that homework early. Don't procrastinate.
Yes.
You can ask for help. Talk to your counselors when you need it.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. Thank you. See you next month, really soon. And yeah, happy August. Happy rest of summer. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
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 I'm losing myself.
I can't seem to look away. I'm here.